What's up, guys? Welcome back into the Ballroom Podcast. This is episode 16. I'm your host, Rohan and as always, I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Arav. Arav, what's going on?
I'm good, Rohan. We had some interesting game fours in the conference finals. I'm super excited to discuss them with you. Let's get straight into it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's start with the Eastern Conference Finals. This is probably the most interesting game of them all.
Mhm.
The Celtics won this one 102-82 to tie the series two apiece. But I think from all of us watching, this wasn't a 20-point game. It felt like a 40-point game throughout the
Yeah,
whole game,
exactly.
especially from the first quarter. The Celtics just came out guns blazing, and they were just outscoring the Heat in every level, and along with the fact that the Heat just couldn't make a shot for the entire first quarter, and it felt like really throughout this game. And the Celtics didn't really shoot great in this game at all. They only shot 40% from the field and 23% from three, which is below average numbers. And it wasn't much better than the Heat, who only shot 33% from the field and 39% from three, which is actually better than the Celtics. So the shooting wasn't really the disparity in the game. But the difference of the game, in large part, was the free throw game. The
Mhm.
Celtics were 32 of 38 from the free throw line, and the Heat were just 8 of 14 in the free throw from the free throw line, which is a 24-point differential. And the Celtics only won by 20 in this game, so you can kind of see like that tells a lot of the story. But you can kind of look further into sort of why that was the case, and that's just because the Celtics were more aggressive in the paint. Throughout the game, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and everyone was just getting to the paint and just drawing fouls. And also the fact that the Heat only took 14 free throws in large part was just because of the Celtics defense, which was stifling all game, in large part
Yeah.
due to the interior defense of the Celtics bigs. They had 11 blocks versus the Heat's 2 throughout the game. And that's why the Heat just weren't able to attack the paint or really get to the line in this game.
Yeah, and Al Horford, although he didn't have a big scoring game, he only had 5 points. He was just everywhere defensively and all the on the boards. He was doing all the little things. He had 4 blocks, 13 rebounds, and 3 assists. Then Robert Williams was also huge defensively as usual. He had 2 blocks and just like locked down the paint with his size. Also had 12 points and 9 rebounds. They just Al Horford and Rob Williams just like locked up the paint, didn't let the Heat go anywhere. The Heat were just like in prison, and they were stifled. The Celtics didn't foul, which is why the Heat didn't shoot as many free throws. And then also on the offensive end, Jason Tatum led the Celtics in scoring with 31 points. He had 24 points in the first half, which is a big bounce back game from game three where he only had 10 points. Um, and then in this game, he shot 8 of 16 from the field, but was only 1 of 7 from three. But he was 14 of 16 from the free throw line, which shows like how aggressive he was all game, and kind of like you said, Rohan, the Celtics were just like super aggressive going into the paint.
Exactly. But other than Jason Tatum, like no one else really had like a stellar game for them.
Hmm.
Like Jaylen Brown really struggled in this game. He only had 12 points on 5 of 20 shooting from the field, which is 25%, and only 1 of 6 from the 3-point line. But I think they just got contributions across the board. They had 4 other guys in double figures. No one scored more than 14. Peyton Pritchard had 14 points, but they had obviously the 12 from Jaylen Brown. Derek White was also huge for them in place of Marcus Smart in the starting lineup, who was out with his ankle injury that he suffered in Game 3. But he stepped up big. He had 13 points. He had 10 in the first quarter, and he had the first 7 points for the Celtics in this game, which kind of set the tone for them throughout the game. They got out to a quick 7-0 run to start the game, and they never really looked back from there. And also
Yeah.
his defense was solid, as always. It's been all playoffs. He hasn't really had his shot all playoffs. He's been up and down with his 3-point shooting and scoring, but he's played solid defense all playoffs, and that's kind of why he's been such a crucial piece for them in this run.
Yeah, I thought at the start of the game when Derek White dropped that first 7 points in like the first minute and a half, I thought he was gonna go off for like 40. It was just like he was hitting everything and just like seemed like he had in control. It was just like a bit. He played a big role to get. He played a big contribution to just get the Celtics going and get them hot off right off the gate. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think more than just the Celtics side of things, I think the Heat were I think the Heat side of things were more telling in sort of why the game played out this way.
Mhm.
They just got blown out right out of the gate.
Yeah.
They went down 18-1
Yeah, that was
in the
crazy.
first quarter, and then they were down 26-4 at one point in the first quarter, which is just that scoreboard was just unbelievable. They missed their
Mhm.
first 14 shots of the game. And they made their first field goal in the first quarter with Oladipo's three with 3 minutes and 22 left in this game, which is just crazy to
In the
think
in the
about.
quarter, in the quarter.
In the quarter. And they scored just 12. They scored just 11 points in the quarter, and they were 3 of 20 from the field in the first quarter. And they were down 57-33 at the half. And once that first quarter happened, there was really no going back for them. They were pretty much deep in a hole, and they couldn't really get out.
Yeah. And like Oladipo for the Heat was pretty much the only player who showed up. He had 18 of their 33 in the first half, and he had 23 points in the game. And then the Heat starters combined for only 18 points in the whole game, which is like they're not going to win any basketball game playing like that, especially against the
Exactly.
Celtics. Bam Adebayo had only 9 points on just 3 of 5 from the field. Bam Adebayo, he's an all-star. He's a maxed contract caliber player. He has played up to those standards in only one game all series, which was in as we saw in Game 3. It just hasn't been able to get it going offensively. It's a big reason because a big reason for this is because the Celtics bigs like Al Horford and Rob Williams and their interior defense, they're just like too stifling as we saw in this game. And then Jimmy Butler only had 6 points on 3 of 14 from the field. His knee injury seemed to be bothering him a little from game 3. Hopefully he can get back to 100% this series, but without him being at 100%, they're going to have a hard time scoring and playmaking, just like we saw in this game because he's like their main scorer, their main playmaker. He's the key piece for the Heat, and he's the reason, the number one reason why they're so deep in the playoffs.
Exactly, because other than Jimmy Butler, their only like player who can go and get a bucket and is like a bona fide scorer type player is Tyler Hero, and he wasn't in this. He wasn't playing this game. He was out with a groin injury in this game, and so they're gonna have a really tough time buying buckets because you're going up against the Celtics, who have players like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. You're not gonna be able to keep up scoring wise if you have really nobody on the floor who can just go and get a bucket and stop the bleeding. I think Victor Oladipo was that guy in this game. He actually looked like the Indiana Victor Oladipo of 3 years ago, who was an all-star. But really no one else came along from the ride. Like Kyle Lowry, obviously, who's been pretty much absent this entire playoffs, obviously because of his hamstring injury. Only had 3 points in this game, and he looks to just still be like playing on one hamstring. So you can't really ask much of him. But Max Strus, who's been a pretty dependable guy offensively, and sort of at times been their secondary offensive option. He had 0 points in this game on 0 of 7 shooting, which is just like that's unreal. And also PJ Tucker had 0 points. And so obviously in this game, since no one from the starting lineup scored, 64 of their 82 points came from the bench. Duncan Robinson added 14, most of those, and were in garbage time. Also, Cody Martin added 12, along with obviously Oladipo's 23, but those were kind of all coming in garbage time. So the game had pretty much gotten out of hand, and that's the starters not being able to score really set the tone and sort of started their like difficulty in scoring throughout the game. And obviously the bench scores their best, but the game was already out of hand.
Yeah, and also without Tyler Hero, because of his groin injury, and with Jimmy Butler having his knee injury, the Heat are just like I feel like they're just simply not going to be able to keep up with scoring wise with the Celtics as we saw in this game. They only scored 82 points, which is not going to win them a basketball game, especially in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics have two elite scorers, obviously with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who are each going to give you 25 to 40 points. It ranges through there, 20 to 40 points. And then it could just without Tyler Hero and that 15 to 20 points or 25 points, it's going to end up costing the Heat throughout the rest of the series.
Exactly. And so health is obviously a big reason this series has kind of been really unpredictable. Like we've seen, like every game is just like it's a blowout, or it's like we don't really know what's going on. It's just been random. Like there's not been much consistency throughout the series, and so coming down the stretch in a 2-2 series, you're going to need guys who you can depend on to get a bucket. And so that's why Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler's health are going to be huge looking forward. But yeah, let's see what happens in game 5. Obviously, a pivotal game being 2-2. And this game obviously giving the one of the teams a 3-2 lead in the series with a chance to close it out in game 6. But like we've seen, like whoever wins this game, we don't even know if they'll be able to close it out just because it's been so unpredictable, and some team could just catch fire, and it could in all reality, it could go to 7, and we won't know what happens in a game 7. It's anyone's series.
Yeah, it's definitely anyone's series. I mean, game 5 is going to be interesting. Hopefully it's not another blowout. Hopefully we actually have a good game. But going back to Miami, I feel like even though the Heat lost this game, they're going back into Miami with a pivotal game 5. They have home court and they have the opportunity to take a 3-2 series lead. So I think they're still in like good shape, but also obviously the Celtics have momentum now.
Exactly. And I think as basketball fans too, I think we're all praying for a close game, a competitive game down the stretch. We've had just blowouts after blowouts in these conference finals. So as long as we have a close competitive game in the fourth quarter, I think we'll all be happy, regardless of who wins. So
yeah,
looking forward to that.
Yeah, definitely.
Should we move on to the next series?
Yeah, let's do it. Next we got the Golden State Warriors versus the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks won this game 119-109, but the Warriors still lead the series 3-1. And this was a very interesting game. I mean, this game had everything, including a 16-minute rain delay in a basketball game,
We weren't playing in the Cowboys Stadium. It was the Mavs Stadium.
The Cowboys Stadium is domed too, so.
But that could have leaked too, just because it's Dallas.
Yeah. So yeah, it was delayed because of a leaking roof. It was actually delayed before in March because of the same
that's what
issue.
They're saying.
Yeah, and then Draymond Green's free throw also got stuck on the rim, which was crazy. And then the Warriors reserves almost came back from a 29-point deficit too, which was wild. And I mean, for the Mavericks, they just simply did not want to get swept. So great job for them, showing that they just simply don't give up, and they came out with the win to push the series to game 5 back in the Bay. And then like I was talking about, like we were talking about in the previous episode, where only 3 of the Mavericks guys show up each game, which is not going to win them games. Everyone for the Mavericks came to play, because nobody wants to get swept, because getting swept is embarrassing. Luka, he's always going to Luka. He flirted with the triple-double. He had 30 points, 14 rebounds, 9 assists, and also did his job defensively too. Had 2 blocks and 2 steals. Finney Smith delivered big time, shot 9 of 13 from the field and 4 of 7 from 3 at 23 points. And then Reggie Bullock bounced back from his horrible game 3 performance, 18 points and 6 of 10 from the field. Those were all threes. And then Kleba bounced back as well. He had 13 points and shot 5 of 6 from the field, and he had 3 blocks as well.
Yeah, everyone really was contributing in this one and making shots, and I think that's kind of what I expected going into this game, with the Mavs just having nothing to lose, just playing with house money at this point. They kind of had like a game 4 Cavs-esque game in the 2017 finals, when the Cavs, I think, set the record for most 3 mades. I think it was either in an NBA Finals game or a playoff game.
I think the playoff game goes to the Cavs as well, when they did it against the Hawks.
Yeah. So so it was probably an NBA Finals game. They just made it rain in that game, and it was similar because they were down 3-0 in that series as well. And so that's kind of the position that the Mavs were in. And I expected it going into it. That a team that shoots so many threes, and they were getting like pretty decent looks throughout the first 3 games and just weren't hitting them. I had a feeling they were going to start making them fall in this one, especially when they were just going to let it fly. So they did a great job in hitting their shots, which gave them a huge advantage, especially in that second quarter when they kind of just pulled away from the Warriors. And it was just kind of the game we expected them to have, just because they're going to live and die by the 3-point line. We've been saying it all series. They've given themselves they put themselves in a good position the first 3 games. They got unlucky in game 2 when they sort of ran out of gas in the second half, but this game they're able to put it together through a full 4 quarters, or 3.5 quarters, because it kind of fell apart in the first half of the fourth.
Yeah, and I feel like in this game especially, I think they were saying it on Inside the NBA as well, they were just attacking the basket much more aggressively.
Yeah,
as well, along with hitting their threes, which was really beneficial for them since they weren't settling for bad threes. And then when they did shoot their threes, obviously like we said, they hit them. They seemed to just be making everything. But they were also attacking super aggressively. They were more aggressive on the defensive end as well. They shot 50% from the field and 46.5% from three. And then they finally in this game they finally out rebounded the Warriors. As in the previous three games, their rebound differential was minus 43. And then they held their ground in points in the paint since their differential in this game was only -8, but in the first three games it was minus 56.
exactly. And going back to what you said, they were just attacking the paint more. Were able to get into the paint, penetrate, and sort of kick out from there, or also find their points in the paint with layups and lobs and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of adds a different dynamic to their offense because we've just seen them sort of just settle for threes and not really attack the paint and then kick out from there. So it definitely is good to sort of go into Game 5 with sort of knowing that your offense can be a little bit more two-sided and gives them definitely puts themselves in a decent position because they would have just been packing up and heading to Cancun after this game, but now they're heading to San Francisco. I think Reggie Miller was saying they can pack their carry on rather than packing 2 check-in bags to Cancun. So it's
Yeah.
definitely a solid showing by them that they weren't gonna back down and we're gonna force the Warriors to close it out.
Yeah, and they're obviously I think they're definitely still in the series, and if they can steal Game 5 on the road, then that puts them in really good shape coming back home to Dallas for Game 6, and then all the pressure would be on the Warriors. And for the Warriors in this game, they just seemed flat the entire game, except in the fourth quarter where the reserves where the reserves significantly cut into the Mavericks 29-point lead. They cut the lead to 10. And I feel like do you think that maybe Steve Kerr should just let the reserves play the rest of the game since it was working and the starters were they just seemed to not be feeling it this game?
I mean, yeah, I think maybe in this game, just because like he had already threw in the white towel, and he kind of knew like
Yeah.
we were gonna concede the game in the fourth. Like, why not let the reserves sort of finish what they started and like what they had built on in the fourth quarter? So, but I don't think him putting in the starters kind of like killed the momentum. I just think
Mhm.
they were still down 10 or 8 with like 3 minutes left, and then the Mavs just got like an easy dunk, which pushed the lead back to 10. And from there, it was just like it was still an uphill climb. So I don't know how much would it change, but yeah, I think if Kerr kind of let the reserves sort of close out the game, maybe something cool would have happened. But I
Yeah.
don't think putting in the starters was really going to change anything because they're already down by so much.
Yeah. And like I said, the starters were just flat this game. Steph only had 20 points, Clay at 12, Wiggins 13. Poole, who's obviously off the bench, but like plays like a starter. He had 10 points. Draymond had 10 points. And I feel like they just simply couldn't match the Mavericks' intensity and their hot shooting, as they only shot 35.7% from three. But the Warriors reserves, especially the rookies, were the main bright spot in this game for them. If we can talk about bright spots for them, as they almost, like I said, they almost came back from that 29-point deficit.
Exactly. Yeah. Kaminga had 17 points in 8 boards, which is huge. And Moses Moody was also huge. He had 10 points and 2 or 3 from three. And according to Warriors Muse on Twitter, Kaminga and Moody are now the youngest and fourth youngest players to score in a conference finals. Kaminga is 19 and he turns 20 in October, and Moody is 19 and turns 20 on May 31st, which actually
Mhm.
could end up being during these playoffs if the Warriors advance to the finals. And for those wondering, Kobe is the second youngest. Gerald Wallace is the third youngest, and Jason Tatum is the fifth youngest to score
Yeah.
in a conference final. So, but the Warriors having two in the top four is kind of unbelievable, and the fact that they're able to play at such a high level and sort of mix the youth and the veterans with the core that's been there in the past 8 years in their championship runs is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. It's really cool to see these two youngins, although they're older than us, but um,
Barely older.
yeah, it's crazy that they're barely older than us. But yeah, it's cool to see them, deliver in a such a high stage, and they both almost single-handedly brought the Warriors back into this game.
Exactly. It was super fun to see, but I think by the end of the game, like the Warriors had dug themselves such a deep hole that they weren't able to really climb out of it. Obviously, due to the Mavs just hot shooting in this one, it's really tough to beat a team that hits 23s in a game, and especially when you're not able to match that. So, but I think this was kind of like a written in L for the Warriors. It was just like they're 0-3 now. This playoffs and shutout games or closeout games on the road. They did it against the Nuggets and also against the Grizzlies. They did it again now, so they just got to go home and close it out and not make the series a little too interesting, because it could get tricky if they lose Game 5.
Yeah, it definitely could get tricky if they lose Game 5. So they just need to be intense, be hungry in Game 5, and to close it out and seal the series and give them birth to the finals.
Exactly, just feed off that Chase Center crowd, and they should be pretty good to go. But yeah, that pretty much does it for us. Game 5s, obviously a lot could go down. Warriors could close it out and punch their ticket into the finals. And then the Heat Celtics are still going to be grinding it out. And they'll have a Game 6 definitely in Boston. So a lot of good basketball left in the conference finals. Hopefully it's a little bit better basketball than what we've seen so far in the conference finals, because there's been a lot of blowouts. But we're excited to keep watching, and we'll keep you guys up with the breakdowns in these episodes.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys after the Game 5s. Looking forward to the Game 5s, and yeah, see you guys later.
Yeah, see you guys.